Millions of stones, impossible precision, and a mystery that has survived for centuries. Hidden in plain sight stands a monument so extraordinary that many experts still debate how it was built, why it was created, and what secrets it was meant to preserve. Some call it a masterpiece of ancient engineering. Others believe it challenges everything we think we know about the past. Tonight we journey deep into one of history's greatest enigmas, a structure that seems to defy its own time, a monument that perhaps should never have existed at all. Before we uncover the evidence, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. It helps us bring more fascinating mysteries from humanity's forgotten past. Now let's explore the story of the monument that shouldn't exist. The monument rises from the landscape with a kind of quiet confidence that seems almost unnatural. It does not appear ruined in the way ancient things are expected to be ruined. It does not resemble a collapsed city swallowed by sand nor a shattered fortress consumed by forests. Instead, it stands, massive, deliberate, silent. The surrounding land changes with the seasons, generations pass, entire civilizations emerge and disappear, and yet the monument remains where it has always been, confronting every visitor with the same unsettling thought. How is this here? That question arrives long before any measurements are taken. It arrives before archaeology, before excavation, before scientific dating methods, before careful analysis of stone and soil. The monument creates the question simply by existing. For centuries, travelers approach it from a distance and struggle to make sense of what they are seeing. From certain angles, it seems impossibly large. From others, it appears strangely precise, as though placed rather than built. Its scale overwhelms familiar assumptions. Human beings naturally judge what they see by comparing it to other things they know. Houses, trees, people, hills. The monument refuses easy comparison. Standing nearby, a person can feel unexpectedly small. The sensation is difficult to describe. It is not merely the experience of looking at something large. Mountains are larger, oceans are larger, storms are larger. Yet mountains, oceans, and storms belong to nature. Their size feels expected. This monument is different because every stone, every angle, every surface suggests intention. Someone made this. That realization is where the mystery truly begins. Before we go deeper, take a moment to like the video and subscribe if this is the kind of history and mystery you enjoy. The most fascinating monuments in human history often share a common quality. They seem to arrive from a world that no longer exists. Modern observers look at them through the lens of contemporary assumptions, expecting a gradual progression of technology and capability. According to that simple narrative, the distant past should always appear less impressive than the present, yet certain structures refuse to cooperate with that expectation. Again and again, archaeologists encounter monuments that force them to reconsider what ancient societies were capable of accomplishing. Massive stone complexes appear in places where no great empire seems to have existed. Extraordinary engineering emerges among people who possessed no iron machinery, no engines, no advanced transportation networks, and no written blueprints that survive today. The monument at the center of this story belongs firmly within that category. Its existence is not impossible. Archaeologists do not regard it as supernatural. There is no credible evidence that mysterious lost technologies or visitors from beyond Earth were involved. The monument is entirely human, and that may be the most astonishing thing about it. Human beings built it. Human hands shaped the stones. Human muscles moved them. Human minds planned it. Human communities organized the labor required to transform an idea into physical reality. The challenge lies in understanding exactly how. Modern people often underestimate ancient populations because they imagine them as primitive versions of ourselves. The evidence paints a different picture. Ancient societies possessed extraordinary knowledge of local environments. They understood materials with remarkable sophistication. They developed complex social systems capable of coordinating enormous projects. They accumulated practical expertise across generations. Yet even after acknowledging all of this, certain monuments remain difficult to explain fully. The structure in this story belongs among those rare examples. Seen from above, it reveals patterns that are not immediately visible from the ground. Seen from the ground, it reveals details invisible from the air. Excavations uncover traces of activities that appear disconnected until decades of research slowly begin connecting the fragments. Each discovery solves one mystery while creating another. A stone is dated earlier than expected. A foundation extends deeper than predicted. Evidence of construction appears in phases rather than a single event. Buried objects suggest rituals whose meaning remains uncertain. The picture grows clearer and more complicated at the same time. This is often how real archaeological mysteries work. Popular culture tends to imagine hidden truths waiting to be uncovered in a single dramatic moment. Reality is usually slower. Knowledge accumulates gradually. Excavations expose one layer at a time. New technologies reveal details invisible to previous generations. Fresh evidence forces old theories to be revised. The monument itself remains largely unchanged throughout this process. It waits. Generations of researchers arrive convinced they will finally explain it completely. They map it, measure it, scan it, compare it with similar structures, debate its purpose, analyze the landscape around it, study microscopic traces left behind by ancient activity. Progress is real. Understanding grows. Yet the central sense of wonder never entirely disappears. Part of the reason lies in the sheer improbability of survival. Most traces of ancient human life vanish. Wood rots, cloth decays, buildings collapse, entire settlements disappear beneath later construction or natural processes. Time is relentless. Monuments endure only under unusual circumstances. The survival of a great structure across thousands of years represents a chain of unlikely events. It must avoid catastrophic destruction. It must survive climate shifts. It must escape complete dismantling by later populations seeking reusable materials. It must endure war, neglect, erosion, and accident. This monument succeeds. Its survival allows modern observers to look directly into a world separated from them by immense stretches of time. That world feels unfamiliar. The people who built the monument live according to assumptions vastly different from those of today. Their understanding of the universe is different. Their social structures are different. Their fears and ambitions are different. The landscape surrounding them often looks different as well. Yet despite those differences, something deeply recognizable remains. The desire to create, the desire to leave a mark, the desire to transform an idea into something that will outlast a single human lifetime. These motivations appear again and again throughout history. They drive the construction of temples, tombs, cities, roads, observatories, monuments, and works of art. They connect modern humanity to distant ancestors across thousands of years. The monument before us emerges from that shared impulse, but on a scale so ambitious that it continues to command attention long after the society that created it has disappeared. Its builders are gone. Their language may be lost. Their beliefs may survive only in fragments. Their names are forgotten. But their creation remains, rising above the landscape, defying expectations, waiting for explanation. And as researchers continue searching for answers, one reality becomes increasingly clear. To understand why this monument appears so extraordinary, it is not enough to examine the structure itself. The story begins much earlier in a world that exists before the first stone is ever lifted, before the first plane is imagined, and before anyone can conceive of a monument that future generations will one day describe as something that should not exist. Long before the monument dominates the horizon, before its stones cast shadows across the landscape, the world around it is already undergoing changes that will make its existence possible. The land appears familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. Rivers follow courses that may no longer exist. Forests spread across regions that now open fields. Grasslands expand and contract with shifting climates. Coastlines lie in different places. Entire ecosystems operate according to patterns that modern observers can only partially reconstruct from fragments buried beneath the earth. Human beings live within these changing environments, adapting continuously. For most of human history, survival depends on mobility. Communities follow seasonal resources. Hunting grounds shift. Wild plants appear and disappear according to rainfall, temperature, and local conditions. The rhythms of life are dictated less by clocks than by landscapes. Generations pass in this way. Knowledge accumulates slowly. Not the knowledge recorded in books, but knowledge carried in memory. Knowledge of rivers, animals, weather patterns, migration routes, edible plants, dangerous places, and sacred locations. Knowledge transmitted through observation and experience. The people living in this distant world are not waiting for civilization to begin. Civilization in many forms already exists around them. Human societies are sophisticated long before they build cities. They possess social networks, traditions, technologies, and systems of cooperation that have been refined over thousands of years. What changes is scale. At some point in many parts of the world, human communities begin spending more time in particular locations. The process does not happen everywhere simultaneously. It does not follow a single path. Different regions experience different transformations, but a broad pattern becomes visible. Temporary settlements become more permanent. Seasonal gatherings become recurring institutions. Populations grow. Communities invest increasing effort in specific places. The evidence survives in scattered traces, layers of occupation, hearths, tools, food remains, pollen preserved in sediments, animal bones, fragments of structures long since vanished. Individually, these discoveries appear modest. Together, they reveal profound change. People are beginning to reshape their environments rather than simply react to them. This transformation is often gradual enough that those experiencing it may barely notice. One generation clears a small area, the next expands it, another builds more durable structures. Over centuries, cumulative decisions alter entire landscapes. The monument's future builders emerge from this world. They are not isolated geniuses suddenly appearing from nowhere. They are heirs to countless generations of experimentation and adaptation. What survives in the archaeological record suggests communities that understand cooperation at increasingly large scales. Such cooperation is crucial. A monument of extraordinary size cannot be created by a handful of individuals. It requires organization, planning, and shared purpose. Those elements develop long before construction begins. The environment itself plays an important role. Climate shapes possibility. Periods of relative stability often create opportunities for population growth and social complexity. Reliable food supplies support larger communities. Larger communities allow greater specialization. Specialized knowledge encourages innovation. Innovation creates new possibilities. None of this guarantees that a monument will be built. Many societies become complex without constructing anything particularly monumental. That fact makes the future structure even more intriguing. At some point, a decision is made. Resources that could support immediate survival will instead be invested in something far larger and less practical. The monument? Why? The answer remains elusive because motives leave fewer traces than stones. Archaeologists can often determine how something was built more easily than why it was built. The evidence remains incomplete, yet clues exist. One of the most surprising discoveries in the study of ancient monuments is the realization that many were created by societies once underestimated by researchers. Earlier generations of scholars frequently assumed that only highly centralized states with powerful rulers could organize massive construction projects. The reality appears more complicated. In several cases, evidence suggests that communities lacking kings' empires or large bureaucracies still manage to coordinate remarkable achievements. Social cooperation can emerge through many different mechanisms: shared beliefs, seasonal gatherings, ceremonial obligations, collective identity, mutual dependence. The monument's origins may lie within combinations of these forces rather than within simple political authority. As centuries pass, the landscape accumulates meaning. Certain locations become important beyond their practical value. A hilltop, a river crossing, an open plain, a distinctive rock formation. Places acquire stories. Memories attach themselves to geography. Human beings begin seeing the land not merely as terrain but as a map of significance. This tendency appears nearly universal throughout history. Sacred spaces emerge. Meeting places emerge. Locations associated with ancestors emerge. The future monument may begin as one such place. Long before massive stones arrive, people may already be gathering there, feasting there, performing ceremonies there, remembering important events there. The physical evidence is often fragmentary, but recurring patterns appear at many archaeological sites around the world. Monuments rarely create significance from nothing. More often, they formalize significance that already exists. They transform meaningful places into unforgettable places. The deeper researchers investigate ancient landscapes, the more they discover hidden layers beneath famous structures. What initially appears as a single monument often turns out to be part of a much larger story stretching back centuries or even millennia. Buried beneath later construction are traces of earlier activity. Small structures precede large ones. Temporary features precede permanent ones. Experiments precede masterpieces. The process resembles evolution rather than sudden invention. Each generation inherits what came before and modifies it. The monument that eventually astonishes future observers emerges through this long chain of development. Its builders do not perceive themselves as creating an impossible structure. They are simply taking the next step within a tradition that has been growing for generations. That perspective is easy to forget. Modern observers see the finished result. Ancient builders experience the process. To them, each decision likely appears more reasonable than it does to distant descendants. A larger platform, a heavier stone, a more ambitious design, a broader gathering place. Small changes accumulate. Then eventually the accumulation becomes extraordinary. Somewhere in this ancient world, amid forests, plains, rivers, and changing skies, the conditions are coming together. Population knowledge, belief organization, environment, and opportunity begin intersecting in ways that will produce something remarkable. The people themselves cannot know how future generations will view their achievement. They cannot know that thousands of years later archaeologists will debate their methods. They cannot know that visitors from distant continents will stand before the finished structure in disbelief. They cannot know that their monument will survive long enough to outlive kingdoms, religions, languages, and political systems. For now, the future remains invisible. The land waits. The communities grow. Traditions deepen. Ideas spread. And somewhere within those developing societies, the first seeds of an extraordinary project are beginning to take shape, a project so ambitious that later ages will struggle to understand how people living in such a distant past ever conceived of it at all. The people who eventually build the monument leave behind a paradox. The more archaeologists learn about them, the more impressive they become. Yet the more impressive they become, the more difficult it is to understand how they achieved what they did. For a long time, many ancient monuments were interpreted through assumptions that now seem surprisingly modern. Researchers often imagined a familiar formula. Powerful rulers command vast numbers of workers. Resources flow through centralized administrations. and monumental construction becomes a display of authority. Such explanations fit some historical societies very well. Great empires have indeed left behind enormous structures. The difficulty arises when the evidence points somewhere else. In the case of certain extraordinary monuments, archaeologists find little indication of an empire. No sprawling capital, no massive bureaucracy preserved in records, no clear signs of kings directing huge state projects. Instead, they encounter communities that appear smaller, more decentralized, and in some ways more fragile than expected. Yet somehow those communities accomplish feats that continue to attract worldwide attention thousands of years later. This is where the story becomes especially fascinating. The builders are not primitive. That word has become increasingly unhelpful in archaeology because it often obscures more than it reveals. These people possess intelligence equal to that of any modern human. Their capacity for planning, creativity, cooperation, and innovation is fully developed. What differs is their technological environment. They live without engines, without steel cranes, without modern roads, without computers, without industrial machinery. Every challenge must be solved using the materials, knowledge, and labor available to them. And despite those limitations, they begin moving toward a construction project of astonishing ambition. Their daily lives are far from easy. Survival still demands constant effort. Food production, resource gathering, shelter maintenance, and seasonal preparation occupy enormous amounts of time and energy. The margin between stability and hardship can be narrow. That reality makes monumental construction even more remarkable. Every day devoted to building something enormous is a day not devoted directly to survival. The investment is significant. The decision must therefore matter. Archaeological evidence from many ancient sites suggests that large construction projects often serve purposes extending beyond practical utility. They help create identity. They strengthen cooperation. They reinforce shared beliefs. They transform scattered communities into participants in something larger than themselves. The monument may represent not merely a structure but a social achievement. Building it becomes part of what defines the society itself. Evidence from ancient gathering places supports this possibility. Researchers increasingly recognize that large ceremonial centers often attract people from wide regions. Communities travel considerable distances to participate in events, rituals, exchanges, and seasonal gatherings. These gatherings create opportunities. Knowledge spreads. Relationships form. Ideas circulate. Collective projects become possible. The monument begins to emerge within such a world. One of the lesser-known details about ancient construction is the degree to which expertise can develop without formal science. Modern engineering relies heavily on mathematics, written calculations, and technical documentation. Ancient builders often rely instead on accumulated practical knowledge. Experience becomes a form of technology. Generations learn which stones crack under pressure, which foundations remain stable, which slopes are manageable, which materials weather successfully over time. This knowledge may never appear in written form, yet it can be extraordinarily sophisticated. The monument's builders likely possess exactly this kind of expertise. They understand their environment intimately. They know where suitable stone can be found. They know how seasonal conditions affect transportation. They know how groups of workers can coordinate difficult tasks. Such knowledge develops through centuries of observation. Nothing about it is accidental, and yet there remains something astonishing about the scale of the undertaking. As the project grows larger, numbers of people become involved. Some gather materials, others shape them, others transport them, others prepare construction areas, others organize food supplies necessary to sustain workers. The monument becomes a focal point around which social energy concentrates. Archaeologists often emphasize that ancient societies were capable of organizing labor in ways modern people frequently underestimate. Human beings are inherently cooperative. Under the right conditions, communities can coordinate enormous efforts without modern technology. Examples appear throughout history. Road networks spanning continents, agricultural systems transforming landscapes, massive earthworks visible from the sky, monumental architecture surviving for millennia. The monument belongs to this tradition of collective achievement. Still, questions remain. Scholars continue debating exactly how authority functioned among its builders. Was construction directed by religious specialists, community leaders, seasonal councils, influential families, some combination of these? The evidence remains incomplete. No single explanation fully accounts for everything researchers observe. This uncertainty adds another layer to the mystery. The monument seems too ambitious for a loose collection of communities, yet evidence sometimes suggests precisely such communities were involved. It appears too organized to emerge spontaneously, yet traces of centralized power may be surprisingly limited. The structure occupies an intriguing space between expectations. Perhaps that is one reason it feels so modern. Modern societies often assume complexity requires hierarchy. Ancient monuments occasionally challenge that assumption. They suggest that cooperation itself can generate extraordinary results. As construction planning advances, the builders face decisions that will shape the monument for thousands of years. Where should the largest elements be placed? How should the structure interact with the surrounding landscape? What orientations matter? What visual effects are desired? These choices reveal intention. Nothing on this scale happens casually. Every major feature requires labor. Every adjustment requires effort. The finished monument therefore becomes a physical record of priorities. Stone records decisions. Stone records values. Stone records imagination. Unlike wood or cloth, stone preserves those records across immense stretches of time. The builders themselves may never see the monument completed in its final form. Many large ancient projects unfold across generations. Individuals contribute knowing that future descendants will continue the work. Such long-term thinking can be difficult for modern observers to appreciate. It requires confidence in continuity. It requires belief that the community will endure. The monument reflects precisely that kind of confidence. Its creators invest labor not merely for immediate benefit, but for a future they may never personally experience. That choice carries profound significance. Across thousands of years, the structure becomes a message from people who cannot speak directly to us. The message is incomplete. Its language has partly vanished. Its context is partly lost. Yet its existence remains unmistakable. Something important happened here. Something large enough to mobilize communities. Something meaningful enough to justify enormous effort. Something powerful enough to leave a permanent mark upon the landscape. The builders continue their work, gradually transforming an idea into reality. Stone by stone, season by season, generation by generation, the monument grows larger. What began as possibility becomes commitment. What began as commitment becomes construction. And as the structure expands, another problem emerges, one so daunting that even today it remains among the most debated aspects of the entire mystery. The monument is becoming enormous, far larger than anyone would reasonably expect, far heavier than common sense suggests, and the question of how its builders managed to handle such immense masses of stone is about to become one of the greatest puzzles in ancient engineering. At first glance, the monument seems impressive. At second glance, it becomes difficult to comprehend. The transition occurs when numbers enter the picture. A visitor standing beside a massive stone often experiences only a vague sense of scale. Human perception is imperfect. Large objects appear large, but the mind does not automatically calculate weight, volume, or labor. A stone may seem enormous without fully conveying what its existence implies. Then measurements are taken. The dimensions are recorded. The estimated weight is calculated. Suddenly the monument transforms from impressive to bewildering. Some of its components weigh far more than most people initially assume. Individual stones can equal the weight of dozens of automobiles. In some ancient monuments around the world, blocks reach weights that seem almost absurd for pre-industrial societies. Even when the stones of a particular monument fall below those extremes, the cumulative mass remains staggering. The structure is not merely large. It is large many times over. Every stone represents effort. Every layer represents organization. Every aligned feature represents planning. The scale of the undertaking begins to reveal itself not through what is visible, but through what must have happened to make the visible possible. Archaeologists often attempt to reconstruct construction requirements by working backward from the finished monument. The process can be illuminating. If a stone weighs several tons, how many people are needed to move it? How far must it travel? What tools are available? What terrain lies between the source and the construction site? How much food must workers consume during the process? How much time does each stage require? The answers accumulate quickly. A single stone becomes a logistical challenge. Hundreds of stones become a societal commitment. The monument at the center of this story forces researchers into precisely these calculations. Again and again the numbers refuse to remain small. What appears from a distance as a simple structure reveals hidden layers of complexity. Foundations must be prepared. Materials must be extracted. Transport routes must be managed. Placement must be coordinated with remarkable precision. No part of the process is effortless. One lesser-known reality of ancient construction is that moving stone is often more difficult than shaping it. Modern observers tend to focus on carving and craftsmanship because those aspects are visually obvious. Yet transport can consume far greater resources. A massive stone resting in a quarry is not yet part of a monument. Getting it to the monument is the challenge. Researchers studying ancient construction frequently discover that source materials originate far from the final site. Sometimes the distances are modest. Sometimes they are astonishing. The farther materials travel, the greater the mystery becomes. Why select a distant source rather than a nearby one? Did the stone possess symbolic importance? Was its quality superior? Did cultural traditions require specific materials? Scholars still debate such questions. The evidence remains incomplete. Yet one fact becomes clear. The builders are willing to invest extraordinary effort to obtain exactly what they want. This willingness tells us something important about their priorities. The monument is not merely functional. If practical considerations alone dominated decision-making, easier solutions would likely have been chosen. Instead, labor-intensive choices appear repeatedly. The builders pursue particular forms, particular materials, and particular arrangements despite the enormous costs involved. Their pattern suggests deeper motivations. As archaeologists map the monument in detail, another striking feature emerges. The structure is rarely isolated. Modern photographs sometimes create the impression of a single spectacular object standing alone in the landscape. Excavations often reveal a more complicated reality. Additional features surround the main construction: earthworks, ditches, platforms, pathways, secondary structures, activity zones, buried remains of features long vanished from the surface. The visible monument may represent only a fraction of a much larger complex. This realization changes how scale is understood. Researchers are no longer examining a single structure. They are examining an entire engineered landscape. Human beings have altered the environment deliberately and extensively. The amount of labor increases accordingly. Every new discovery expands the project's apparent size. Every excavation uncovers evidence of additional effort. The monument grows larger even while remaining physically unchanged. Knowledge itself enlarges it. One particularly surprising aspect of ancient monumental construction is the ability of societies to maintain long-term consistency. projects lasting decades or generations require shared standards. Stones must fit planned arrangements. Alignments must remain meaningful. Construction decisions must remain coordinated over time. This continuity is not automatic. It must be preserved. Traditions serve as a kind of memory system. Knowledge passes from experienced builders to younger ones. Techniques survive. Goals remain recognizable. The monument becomes a chain connecting multiple generations. Each group inherits unfinished work and contributes to its continuation. The result is something larger than any individual life. Such projects reveal remarkable social stability, at least during key phases of construction. Communities must cooperate long enough for the monument to emerge. Conflict, famine, environmental disruption, or social collapse could interrupt progress. Yet the monument exists. Construction succeeds. That success alone provides evidence about the capabilities of its builders. For many years, popular imagination treated ancient people as limited by a lack of technology. Archaeology increasingly suggests a different perspective. Technology matters, certainly, but organization matters too. Planning matters, knowledge matters, persistence matters. A determined society with simple tools can sometimes achieve results that seem astonishing from a modern perspective. The monument stands as proof. Still, the numbers remain difficult to ignore. Researchers estimate labor requirements. They calculate transportation challenges. They model construction sequences. Again and again, the project appears ambitious even under favorable assumptions. No single calculation makes the monument impossible. The mystery emerges from accumulation. Every task is difficult. Every stage requires effort. Every solution introduces new complications. And yet somehow everything works. The stones arrive. The foundations hold. The alignments remain. The structure rises. This cumulative improbability is what gives the monument its reputation. Not because any single feature defies science, not because archaeologists lack explanations altogether, but because so many challenges must be solved simultaneously. The achievement feels larger than the sum of its parts. Visitors often sense this intuitively. Even without understanding measurements or engineering principles, they recognize that the monument represents extraordinary effort concentrated in one place. The landscape itself seems altered by determination. Ancient builders have imposed a vision upon geography. They have transformed raw material into meaning. They have reshaped the horizon. Yet perhaps the most daunting challenge still lies ahead. Understanding the monument's size is one thing. Understanding how its immense materials travelled from distant sources to their final positions is another. The stones did not move themselves. They crossed real terrain. They navigated rivers, slopes, mud, weather, and distance. Somehow, without engines, cranes, steel cables, or modern transport systems, ancient builders accomplished what appears almost unimaginable. And the search for their methods reveals one of the most fascinating investigations in all of archaeology. The stones begin their journey long before they become part of the monument. For modern observers, this may be the hardest part of the story to visualize. The finished structure appears fixed and permanent. It seems as though it belongs exactly where it stands. Yet every massive stone once existed somewhere else. Every block rested in a quarry on a hillside or within a rocky outcrop waiting to be separated from the earth. The monument is not simply a structure. It is the final destination of countless journeys. Archaeologists attempting to reconstruct those journeys often find themselves confronting a problem that appears deceptively simple. If ancient people lacked engines and modern machinery, how did they move such enormous weights? The answer is that they almost certainly relied upon methods that were laborious rather than miraculous. This distinction matters. Popular imagination sometimes assumes that if modern observers cannot immediately picture a process, the process must have involved some lost secret. Archaeology usually points in another direction. Ancient builders often solve extraordinary problems through persistence, organization, and practical ingenuity rather than mysterious technologies. The challenge is that practical ingenuity can still appear astonishing when examined closely. Imagine a massive stone freshly detached from its source. It may weigh several tons. It may possess an awkward shape. It must travel across terrain that includes uneven ground, changing weather, and natural obstacles. Nothing about this task is easy. Yet evidence from around the world demonstrates that ancient societies repeatedly succeeded in moving enormous objects. Researchers studying traditional engineering methods have identified a variety of possible techniques. Wooden sledges can reduce friction. Rollers can help distribute weight. Prepared tracks can improve movement. Lubricated surfaces can ease transport. Ropes made from plant fibers can generate surprising pulling power when used by coordinated groups. None of these solutions sounds dramatic. That is precisely the point. Ancient engineering often appears less magical and more impressive the closer it is examined. Every solution demands planning. Every solution requires labor. Every solution depends upon cooperation. The monument's builders likely understand these principles extremely well. One of the most fascinating discoveries in experimental archaeology is how frequently modern people underestimate what coordinated human effort can achieve. Small groups struggle with tasks that become manageable when hundreds of individuals work together according to a clear plan. Force accumulates, efficiency improves, momentum builds. Tasks that initially seem impossible gradually become feasible. This does not eliminate difficulty. It merely changes the nature of the challenge. The problem shifts from raw strength to organization. Can enough people be gathered? Can food be provided? Can schedules be coordinated? Can expertise be maintained? Can motivation be sustained? These questions may be more important than the physical act of pulling stone. Evidence from ancient construction sites often suggests sophisticated logistical systems operating behind the scenes. Workers require shelter. Tools require maintenance. Routes require preparation. Resources must flow continuously. The monument therefore represents not only engineering but administration. Even if no formal bureaucracy exists in the modern sense, some mechanism must coordinate activity on a large scale. Scholars still debate exactly how such coordination functioned. The evidence remains incomplete. What survives in the archaeological record suggests impressive social organization, but the precise details often remain frustratingly elusive. Another clue emerges from the landscape itself. Ancient builders rarely move materials randomly. They take advantage of natural features whenever possible. Rivers become transportation corridors. Gentle slopes reduce effort. Seasonal conditions influence timing. The environment becomes part of the engineering solution. This relationship between builders and landscape is easy to overlook because modern infrastructure frequently overwhelms natural geography. Ancient societies generally possess fewer opportunities to ignore terrain. Instead, they learn to work with it. The monument's builders likely do the same. They understand local conditions intimately. They know when the ground is firm. They know when rivers are navigable. They know which routes are practical. Generations of experience inform these decisions. One lesser-known detail about ancient transport is that distance itself can be misleading. A stone moved 50 kilometers across favorable terrain may present fewer difficulties than one moved 10 kilometers through challenging conditions. Context matters. Every journey must be evaluated individually. Researchers analyzing the monument often attempt precisely this kind of reconstruction. They identify potential quarry locations. They examine ancient pathways. They model transportation scenarios. They compare evidence with known historical techniques. Gradually possible explanations emerge, yet certainty remains elusive. In some cases, multiple methods may have been employed simultaneously. Different stones may have traveled by different routes. Construction techniques may have evolved over time. Later generations may have modified earlier work. The monument does not reveal its secrets easily. Every answer opens new questions. Part of the difficulty lies in the disappearance of temporary evidence. The stones survive. The transport systems usually do not. Wood decays. Ropes vanish. Tracks erode. Temporary structures disappear. Archaeologists are often forced to infer processes from results. They see the destination but not the journey. This challenge explains why debates continue even when broad agreement exists about general principles. Most researchers accept that ancient people possessed the capability to move large stones using known technologies and organized labor. The unresolved questions concern details. Exactly how many workers participated, exactly which routes were chosen, exactly what equipment was employed, exactly how long did particular stages require. The evidence rarely provides complete answers. Yet perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the transport problem is not technical at all. It is psychological. Someone had to believe the effort was worthwhile. Imagine standing beside an enormous stone before its journey begins. The destination may lie kilometers away. The work ahead may consume weeks, months, or even longer. Countless obstacles will arise, and yet the project proceeds. This willingness to undertake immense effort reveals something profound about the builders. They possess confidence. Not necessarily confidence in a modern sense, but confidence in collective action. Confidence that cooperation can transform the landscape. Confidence that future rewards justify present sacrifices. Such confidence is not easily created. It emerges from shared beliefs, shared goals, and shared identities. The monument becomes a physical expression of those social forces. Every transported stone embodies commitment. Every completed stage demonstrates persistence. The structure grows because people continue choosing to make it grow. Season after season, year after year, generation after generation. Eventually the materials arrive. The difficult journeys end. The stones stand waiting at the construction site. Yet another challenge immediately presents itself. Moving massive stones across the landscape is one thing. Positioning them precisely within a complex monument is another entirely. Weight alone is no longer the primary obstacle. Now accuracy becomes essential. The builders must lift a line balance and arrange enormous materials according to a design that exists first in human imagination and only later in stone. And it is in this stage of construction that the monument begins to reveal an unexpected level of sophistication, one that continues to surprise researchers even today. Once the stones arrive, the monument enters its most visible phase. The transportation problem, immense as it is, remains largely hidden from future generations. The roads disappear, the ropes decay, the temporary camps vanish. What survives is the finished arrangement of stone. Visitors thousands of years later encounter the result rather than the process, and it is the result that causes so much astonishment. The stones are not merely present, they are positioned. That distinction is crucial. A pile of enormous rocks would be impressive, but it would not become one of history's enduring mysteries. The monument commands attention because its elements occupy specific locations with remarkable consistency. Angles correspond, alignments repeat. Structural relationships make sense. The arrangement suggests planning at every stage. Someone knew exactly what they wanted to build. This realization becomes more striking as archaeologists conduct increasingly precise surveys. Early visitors often focus on obvious features. They notice size, they notice height, they notice the visual impact of standing among massive stones. Modern research adds another layer. Laser scanning, aerial mapping, and detailed measurement reveal patterns difficult to perceive from ground level. The monument is not simply large, it is organized, and organization is often harder to achieve than scale. A society might occasionally assemble enough labor to move huge stones. Maintaining precision across an entire construction project requires something more. It requires standards. It requires communication. It requires a shared understanding of goals. The builders possess these capabilities. Exactly how they preserve them remains a subject of ongoing discussion. Some researchers propose highly trained specialists directing key stages of construction. Others emphasize the role of tradition with knowledge transmitted through generations of experienced builders. These possibilities are not mutually exclusive. The evidence suggests that ancient societies frequently combine practical expertise with cultural continuity. What survives in the record suggests builders who understand their materials exceptionally well. Stone appears permanent, but it is not simple. Different types of stone behave differently under pressure. Some fracture easily, some weather rapidly. Some can support immense weight, others cannot. Successful construction requires intimate knowledge of these properties. Ancient builders acquire such knowledge through observation and experience. Their expertise develops over centuries. The monument becomes one expression of that accumulated understanding. One particularly fascinating aspect of ancient engineering is the ability to achieve impressive results without modern measuring tools. Contemporary construction relies on precise instruments capable of extraordinary accuracy. Ancient societies generally work with simpler equipment, yet simplicity should not be confused with ineffectiveness. Carefully used chord stakes, sighting methods, and geometric principles can produce surprisingly accurate results. Experimental archaeology repeatedly demonstrates that many ancient achievements are entirely compatible with practical techniques available at the time. The mystery therefore shifts. Researchers no longer ask whether ancient builders were capable. The evidence clearly indicates they were. Instead, attention turns toward the level of coordination required. The monument's design implies long-term planning. Large stones must occupy positions prepared in advance. Foundations must support anticipated loads. Individual construction stages must contribute to a larger vision. Mistakes become increasingly expensive as projects grow. Correcting errors involving massive stones is not easy. The monument's builders appear remarkably successful at avoiding catastrophic failures. This success reveals something important. They are not experimenting blindly. They know what they are doing. Perhaps not in the language of modern engineering, but in practical terms, they possess sophisticated mastery of their craft. The structure itself becomes evidence of competence. One lesser-known detail emerging from archaeological investigations is that ancient monuments often contain traces of adaptation. Plans change, designs evolve, construction methods shift over time. The finished result may represent a series of decisions rather than a single rigid blueprint. This flexibility is significant. It suggests builders capable of solving problems as they arise. Large projects rarely proceed exactly as intended. Unexpected obstacles appear. Materials behave differently than anticipated. Environmental conditions interfere. Successful construction requires adjustment. The monument bears subtle signs of such adjustment. Researchers identify modifications, refinements, and alterations incorporated during construction. These details humanize the builders. Rather than following an infallible plan, they appear to be responding intelligently to challenges. The monument becomes not merely a triumph of design, but a triumph of problem-solving. As investigations continue, another remarkable feature attracts attention. Certain aspects of the structure appear unnecessary if purely practical considerations are considered. Additional effort has been invested in visual impact, in symmetry, in symbolic arrangements, in features visible only under particular conditions. These choices reveal priorities extending beyond utility. The builders care about meaning. They care about appearance. They care about experience. Visitors approaching the monument are meant to perceive something specific. The structure communicates, not through words but through scale and design. This communicative function may be among its most important characteristics. Monuments influence behavior. They shape movement. They direct attention. They create emotional responses. Standing within such spaces can produce feelings difficult to articulate even today. A sense of significance, a sense of permanence, a sense of participation in something larger than oneself. Ancient builders understand these effects instinctively. The monument is designed not merely to exist, but to be experienced. This perspective helps explain why construction demands such extraordinary effort. The structure is not solving a practical problem in the modern sense. It is creating a place unlike ordinary places, a place where social, ceremonial, cultural, or spiritual activities acquire additional power through their setting. Exactly which activities occur there remains uncertain. Scholars still debate many details. The evidence remains incomplete. Yet the monument's architecture strongly suggests intentional experience. Its builders are shaping human perception as carefully as they shape stone. That achievement may be among the most sophisticated aspects of the entire project. The structure influences how people move, where they gather what they see and what they feel. It transforms landscape into meaning. By the time major construction phases are completed, the monument has become something extraordinary. Its stones stand where nature never placed them. Its alignments reflect deliberate choices. Its scale exceeds ordinary needs. Its presence dominates the surrounding environment. Future generations will inherit this creation without fully understanding how it came into being. Some will attribute it to forgotten giants. Some will connect it to legends. Some will imagine lost technologies. Others will attempt careful investigation. All of them will confront the same reality. The monument exists because human beings achieve something remarkable. Yet despite all this evidence of skill and planning, a frustrating absence remains at the center of the story. The builders leave behind stone. They leave behind traces of activity. They leave behind clues embedded in the landscape. But they leave almost no direct explanation of themselves. No detailed construction manuals. No complete written records. No surviving account that clearly states why the monument was built or how its creators understood their own achievement. And that silence becomes one of the greatest mysteries of all. The monument speaks constantly, yet it never explains itself. Its stones remain visible. Its design can be measured. Its alignments can be mapped with extraordinary precision. Archaeologists can examine soil samples, recover artifacts, analyze microscopic traces, and reconstruct portions of the ancient environment. An enormous amount of information survives, and still something essential is missing. The builders never sit down and tell us what they were doing. This absence shapes almost every discussion surrounding the monument. Modern societies are accustomed to written records. Governments produce documents. Engineers create plans. Religious institutions preserve texts. Individuals leave letters, diaries, and accounts. Even when physical structures disappear, written evidence often survives to provide context. The monument belongs to a different world, a world where information may be transmitted through memory rather than writing, a world where stories travel through generations orally, a world where ceremonies, traditions, and shared experiences preserve knowledge that leaves little archaeological trace. When such societies vanish, much of their understanding vanishes with them. The result is a peculiar imbalance. Researchers know a great deal about the monument itself and far less about the thoughts of the people who created it. This is one reason the structure continues to inspire fascination. The evidence is substantial but incomplete. Enough survives to demonstrate extraordinary achievement. Not enough survives to eliminate uncertainty. Archaeologists frequently compare the situation to finding the remains of a complex machine without its instruction manual. The machine clearly performs a function. Its components are visible. Its construction can be studied. Yet understanding its purpose becomes more difficult when the surrounding context has disappeared. The monument presents exactly this challenge. Its physical reality is undeniable. Its meaning remains open to interpretation. One of the most striking aspects of ancient history is how much can disappear even when monumental architecture survives. Languages vanish, belief systems fade, political structures collapse. Entire ways of understanding the world can leave only faint traces behind. The monument becomes a survivor from a lost intellectual landscape. Its builders inhabit a reality shaped by assumptions that modern observers may never fully recover. This does not mean understanding is impossible. Far from it. Researchers have developed increasingly sophisticated methods for investigating ancient societies. Artifacts recovered near monuments can reveal patterns of activity. Animal remains provide clues about food and ceremonial practices. Environmental evidence reconstructs ancient landscapes. Human burials offer insights into health, diet, migration, and social organization. Piece by piece, fragments accumulate. Yet a frustrating gap often remains between behavior and belief. Archaeologists can sometimes determine what people did. Understanding why they did it is considerably harder. The monument sits precisely within that gap. One lesser-known challenge involves the tendency of later societies to reinterpret older monuments. Human beings rarely leave ancient structures alone. New generations encounter old creations and assign fresh meanings to them. Stories emerge, legends grow, myths attach themselves to visible landmarks. Over centuries, original purposes may become obscured beneath layers of later interpretation. The monument experiences this process repeatedly. Long after its builders are gone, other communities encounter it. Some admire it. Some fear it. Some incorporate it into their own traditions. Some alter it physically. The monument acquires multiple histories. Distinguishing between them becomes an important task for researchers. What belongs to the original builders? What belongs to later populations? The answers are not always obvious. Evidence must be examined carefully. This complexity helps explain why archaeological interpretations evolve over time. New discoveries frequently reveal that earlier assumptions were incomplete. A feature once considered original may prove to be a later addition. An artifact once linked to construction may belong to a different period entirely. The monument continually resists simple explanation. Another difficulty emerges from preservation itself. The things most likely to survive are often not the things historians most want to know. Stone survives. Ideas do not. Foundations survive. Songs do not. Earthworks survive. Conversations do not. The archaeological record is therefore selective. It preserves certain categories of evidence exceptionally well, while allowing others to vanish almost completely. The monument's builders likely possess rich traditions explaining its significance. They may understand every alignment, every feature, every ceremonial function. That knowledge could persist for generations through oral transmission. Yet oral traditions depend upon continuity. If continuity breaks, information can disappear with startling speed. The evidence remains incomplete regarding exactly how such losses occurred. Climate changes, social transformations, migrations, conflicts, and cultural shifts may all contribute. Whatever the causes, the result is clear. By the time written history begins illuminating parts of the ancient world, much of the monument's original context may already have faded. Researchers are left reconstructing a puzzle from surviving fragments. Despite these challenges, progress continues. Modern archaeology excels at extracting information from subtle clues. Chemical analysis reveals ancient activities invisible to the naked eye. Remote sensing technologies identify buried features without excavation. Radiocarbon dating establishes increasingly precise timelines. Each innovation expands understanding. The monument slowly becomes less mysterious in some respects. Its age becomes clearer. Its construction phases become clearer. Its relationship to the surrounding landscape becomes clearer. Yet complete certainty remains elusive. Indeed, greater knowledge sometimes reveals greater complexity. Questions multiply rather than disappear. Why were certain design choices made? Why were particular locations selected? Why did construction continue across multiple generations? Why invest such extraordinary effort? No single explanation fully accounts for all available evidence. Scholars still debate many aspects of the monument's significance. That ongoing debate is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of intellectual honesty. The monument exists at the edge of what evidence can currently reveal. Researchers follow the clues as far as they go. Beyond that point, caution becomes necessary. Inference must not be confused with certainty. Possibility must not be mistaken for fact. This distinction matters because extraordinary monuments often attract extraordinary claims. Whenever gaps exist in the historical record, speculation rushes in to fill them. The monument has inspired centuries of speculation. Some ideas are plausible, some are imaginative, some are unsupported by evidence. Separating these categories requires discipline. The silence left by the builders creates opportunity for both careful investigation and unfounded theories. Yet before competing explanations can be evaluated properly, another source of information deserves attention. The monument itself is only part of the archaeological story. Beneath the surrounding ground lie traces invisible to generations of visitors, buried features, forgotten construction phases, discarded objects, evidence of gatherings, rituals, labour, and daily activity. For centuries these clues remain hidden beneath soil and grass. Then excavation begins, and what researchers uncover beneath the monument's surface transforms understanding in ways few had anticipated. For centuries visitors focus on what stands above the ground. The towering stones dominate attention. They are impossible to ignore. Travellers describe them, artists sketch them, historians debate them. The monument's visible presence becomes so powerful that it is easy to forget a simple reality. Most archaeological sites extend beneath the surface. The ground surrounding a monument is rarely empty. It is an archive. Layer after layer of soil preserves traces of human activity, sometimes for thousands of years. Every generation leaves behind fragments, broken tools, animal bones, charcoal from ancient fires, post holes marking vanished structures, tiny particles of pollen recording environmental conditions long gone. Individually, these remains may appear insignificant. Together, they can transform understanding of an entire civilization. The monument's hidden story begins emerging when archaeologists start looking below the surface, rather than merely at the stones themselves. At first, discoveries appear modest. A ditch here, a pit there, scattered artifacts, small traces of occupation. Yet archaeology often advances through accumulation rather than dramatic revelation. One excavation trench reveals a clue, another confirms a pattern, a third exposes something unexpected. Gradually isolated pieces begin fitting together. The landscape surrounding the monument starts to look different. Not physically different, but historically different. What once seemed like a single structure now appears to be part of a much larger complex. This realization represents a turning point. The monument is no longer an isolated achievement standing alone in an empty field. Instead, it becomes the centerpiece of a broader human environment shaped by generations of activity. Excavations reveal evidence that people gather here repeatedly. They work here. They celebrate here. They bury objects here. In some cases, they may bury their dead nearby. The area surrounding the monument acquires layers of significance extending far beyond construction alone. One of the most surprising discoveries at many ancient monumental sites is the scale of communal activity. Researchers often find evidence of large gatherings that dwarf what earlier scholars imagined. Animal remains accumulate in extraordinary quantities. Food preparation areas appear. Temporary structures emerge in the archaeological record. The evidence suggests people are not merely building monuments. They are assembling around them. This distinction matters. The monument may function not simply as a finished object, but as a focal point for social life. Construction itself could be part of a larger process of community formation. People travel, they meet, they exchange goods, they share knowledge, they participate in ceremonies. The monument becomes both a destination and a catalyst. What survives in the record suggests a dynamic landscape rather than a static one. One lesser-known aspect of archaeology is the importance of negative evidence. Sometimes what is missing becomes as significant as what is present. Researchers notice areas deliberately left empty. They identify spaces kept clear over long periods. They observe patterns suggesting intentional organization. The absence of certain features can reveal planning just as effectively as their presence. The monument's surrounding landscape displays several such patterns. Nothing appears random. Even open spaces may possess purpose. This growing appreciation of landscape archaeology changes how researchers approach ancient monuments. Instead of examining structures individually, they begin studying entire regions. The results are often remarkable. Features once considered unrelated suddenly reveal connections. Pathways align with construction phases. Buried ditches correspond to ceremonial areas. Outlying structures interact with the monument in meaningful ways. The landscape starts functioning as a single integrated system. The monument grows larger again, not physically but conceptually. Its influence extends far beyond the stones visible above ground. Another important discovery concerns time. For many years, people tend to imagine ancient monuments being constructed in a single burst of activity. The reality is often far more complicated. Excavations reveal phases. Early features appear beneath later ones. Construction sequences stretch across centuries. The site evolves gradually. One generation builds something modest. Another expands it. A third redesigns part of it. A fourth alters the surrounding landscape. The monument becomes a living project. This realization changes perceptions of its builders. Instead of a single group pursuing a fixed plan, archaeologists begin seeing multiple generations contributing to an evolving vision. The structure becomes a conversation across time. People inherit the work of their ancestors and modify it according to their own needs and beliefs. Such continuity is extraordinary. It requires cultural memory. It requires shared traditions. It requires a lasting commitment to the site's significance. The monument survives because each generation chooses to maintain that commitment. Excavation also reveals unexpected details about daily life. Monuments often appear detached from ordinary existence. Their scale encourages grand interpretations, yet buried evidence frequently reconnects them to human realities. Researchers find tools worn by use, fragments of pottery, animal bone showing butchery marks, evidence of meals consumed centuries or millennia ago. These discoveries remind us that the builders are real people. They eat, they work, they rest, they solve practical problems. The monument may feel timeless, but its creators live ordinary lives shaped by familiar concerns. This human dimension is easy to overlook when confronting enormous stones. Archaeology restores it. The site becomes populated again. Not literally, of course, but imaginatively. The evidence allows researchers to reconstruct moments otherwise lost to history. Workers carrying materials, families arriving for gatherings, crafts specialists preparing equipment, communities participating in events whose precise meaning may remain uncertain. The landscape becomes active, alive, complex, and still mysteries persist. Some discoveries raise more questions than they answer. Objects appear in unusual locations. Construction choices defy simple explanation. Features are built, modified, then abandoned. Patterns emerge that do not fit comfortably within existing theories. Scholars still debate their significance. The evidence remains incomplete. No single explanation fully accounts for every discovery. This tension between clarity and uncertainty defines much of modern archaeology. Each excavation increases understanding while revealing new complexity. The monument becomes both more comprehensible and more mysterious. Perhaps nowhere is this paradox more evident than in the site's relationship with the sky. As surveys become increasingly precise, researchers notice alignments that seem unlikely to be accidental. Certain features correspond to particular celestial events. Specific directions appear repeatedly. Patterns emerge linking architecture and astronomy. At first, such observations are treated cautiously. Coincidences are possible. Humans are skilled at finding patterns even where none exist. Yet the evidence continues accumulating, and gradually attention shifts upward, beyond the stones, beyond the landscape, toward the movements of the sun, the moon, and the heavens that ancient builders watched with extraordinary care. The sky is the oldest calendar humanity has ever known, long before clocks, long before writing, long before permanent monuments rise from the earth. Human beings look upward and notice patterns. The sun follows a predictable path. The moon changes shape according to a regular cycle. Certain stars appear and disappear at particular times of year. Seasons arrive not randomly, but according to rhythms embedded within the heavens. For ancient societies, these observations are not abstract scientific interests. They are practical knowledge. The timing of migrations, planting, harvesting, hunting, gathering, and travel often depends upon understanding seasonal change. A community that pays attention to the sky gains valuable information about the world around it. Over thousands of years, people become remarkably skilled observers. The monument's builders are no exception. As researchers study the structure in increasing detail, they begin noticing something intriguing. Certain alignments seem unusually precise. Particular openings, pathways, stones, or architectural features correspond to significant points on the horizon. At first, such observations generate cautious interest rather than certainty. Archaeologists have learned to be careful. Given enough measurements, coincidences inevitably occur. A stone pointing toward a sunrise may simply be a stone pointing toward a sunrise. Not every alignment carries meaning. The challenge lies in distinguishing intentional design from accidental geometry. This requires evidence, and gradually evidence accumulates. Survey after survey reveals patterns difficult to dismiss. Specific orientations repeat. Important architectural features appear linked to recurring celestial events. The monument begins to suggest that its builders are paying close attention to the movements of the heavens. This realization changes the nature of the mystery. The structure is no longer merely an engineering achievement. It may also be an instrument of observation, or perhaps a ceremonial stage aligned with astronomical cycles, or perhaps both simultaneously. The possibilities expand. One of the lesser-known realities of ancient astronomy is that sophisticated observation does not require advanced technology. Human beings equipped with patience, experience, and clear horizons can track celestial movements with surprising accuracy. The sun's annual journey is especially noticeable. Its rising and setting positions shift gradually throughout the year. Eventually, those movements reach extremes before reversing direction. These turning points, what modern observers call solstices, can be identified through careful observation. Such events possess obvious significance. They mark seasonal transitions. They provide reliable reference points. They connect earthly life to cosmic rhythms. For communities deeply dependent upon seasonal patterns, these moments may carry practical and symbolic importance simultaneously. The monument appears increasingly connected to this world of observation. Researchers identify features that interact dramatically with sunlight during specific times of year. Shadows behave in particular ways. Certain sight lines become meaningful only during key celestial events. These effects are unlikely to be accidental. Creating them requires planning. It requires awareness. It requires builders who understand the sky well enough to incorporate its movements into architecture. The implications are profound. The monument becomes a bridge between earth and heaven, not in a supernatural sense, but in a cultural one. It anchors human activity within larger natural cycles. It transforms observation into experience. People gathering at the site do not merely watch celestial events, they participate in spaces designed around them. Architecture and astronomy merge. This pattern appears in many ancient societies around the world. Human beings repeatedly connect important structures with significant celestial phenomena. The exact meanings vary from culture to culture, but the underlying impulse is remarkably widespread. The sky provides order. The monument expresses that order physically. Yet caution remains necessary. Scholars still debate the extent of astronomical intent within many ancient structures. Some alignments are compelling, others remain controversial. No single explanation fully accounts for every feature. The evidence remains incomplete. This uncertainty is important because popular discussions often exaggerate archaeological findings. Once astronomical connections are identified, speculation can quickly outrun evidence. The monument has experienced precisely this problem. Claims multiply. Some are reasonable. Some stretch beyond what the data supports. Responsible researchers attempt to separate demonstrated alignments from imaginative interpretations. The distinction matters. The monument does not need exaggerated mysteries to be extraordinary. Its verified achievements are already remarkable. One particularly fascinating aspect of celestial alignment is the level of long-term planning required. Significant astronomical events occur on predictable schedules. Designing architecture around them demands foresight. Builders must understand what they are aiming for before construction begins. They must preserve that vision throughout the building process. They must maintain accuracy across large distances and substantial structures. The monument demonstrates precisely this kind of continuity. Its builders are not merely moving stone. They are encoding observations. That realization offers a glimpse into how they may understand their world. Ancient societies often perceive relationships between landscape community ancestry and the heavens. These elements are not separate categories. They form parts of a larger system of meaning. The monument may reflect such a worldview. Its location design and alignments may work together rather than independently. This possibility helps explain why the structure demands such extraordinary effort. The monument is not simply useful, it is meaningful. Meaning can motivate human behavior as powerfully as practical necessity, sometimes more powerfully. The archaeological evidence increasingly supports the idea that the site serves functions extending far beyond construction alone. People gather there repeatedly over long periods. Ceremonial activities appear likely. Important events may be scheduled around celestial cycles. The monument becomes a focal point for collective experience. Standing within it during significant moments could reinforce social bonds, cultural identity, and shared beliefs. The structure helps create community, not merely represent it. This distinction is subtle but important. Monuments do not only reflect societies, they help shape them. As generations participate in recurring events, the monument acquires deeper significance. Memories accumulate, traditions strengthen. The site becomes woven into cultural life. Its importance grows. Yet despite increasing evidence for astronomical connections, a central question remains unresolved. Knowing that a monument aligns with celestial events does not automatically reveal why. Observation alone is not explanation. Purpose remains elusive. Was the site primarily ceremonial, primarily social, primarily astronomical? Some combination of all three? Researchers continue debating these possibilities. The monument offers clues but not definitive answers. Indeed, its astronomical features may be only one part of a much larger story. As public fascination grows, so do alternative interpretations. Legends emerge. Speculation flourishes. Popular theories attempt to explain what conventional archaeology cannot fully resolve. Some of these ideas are grounded in evidence. Others drift far beyond it. And in the centuries that follow, the monument will become a magnet for myths, mysteries, and explanations that range from plausible to extraordinary. The monument's silence creates a vacuum. Human beings rarely tolerate unexplained things for very long. When evidence is incomplete, stories emerge. When certainty disappears, imagination begins working. Across centuries, generations confronted by the monument attempt to explain it, using the knowledge available to them. The results are fascinating. Some explanations contain fragments of truth. Others reveal more about the people creating the stories than about the monument itself. Yet all of them demonstrate the same impulse, the desire to make sense of something extraordinary. Long before archaeology exists as a scientific discipline, local traditions begin attaching meaning to the monument. Ancient structures often acquire legends naturally. Their builders are forgotten. Their original purpose becomes unclear. Later populations inherit the physical remains, but not necessarily the knowledge needed to interpret them. The monument becomes a mystery even within antiquity. This process is more common than many people realize. Entire civilizations have encountered ruins already ancient by their own standards. Human history contains layers upon layers of forgotten worlds. One society builds, another inherits. A third invents stories to explain what survives. The monument passes through precisely this cycle. As memories fade, explanations become increasingly imaginative. Stories of giants frequently appear in connection with megalithic structures around the world. Such legends are understandable. Massive stones seem to demand equally massive builders. To people lacking direct knowledge of ancient engineering methods, supernatural strength can appear more plausible than organized human labor. The monument attracts similar traditions. Its scale encourages extraordinary explanations. After all, standing before enormous stones, it is easy to understand why earlier observers might struggle to imagine ordinary human beings accomplishing such feats. Yet archaeology consistently points toward a different conclusion. The builders are human, exceptionally capable humans certainly, exceptionally organized humans, exceptionally determined humans, but human nonetheless. This distinction matters because it reveals something profound about the monument itself. The structure does not become less impressive when supernatural explanations are removed. In many ways, it becomes more impressive. Human ingenuity replaces myth. Human cooperation replaces magic. Human persistence replaces fantasy. The achievement remains extraordinary, perhaps even more so. As centuries pass, new theories emerge. Some connect the monument to lost civilizations. Others attribute it to forgotten technologies. Still others propose advanced knowledge somehow disappearing from history. These ideas often gain popularity because they offer simple answers to complex questions. The monument appears difficult to explain. Therefore, a dramatic explanation seems attractive. Reality is usually less dramatic and more interesting. Archaeological research rarely uncovers evidence of vanished super technologies. Instead, it reveals long processes of experimentation, adaptation, and cumulative knowledge. Ancient societies achieve remarkable results, not because they possess impossible capabilities, but because they understand their environments and organize their efforts effectively. The monument fits this broader pattern, yet misconceptions persist. One reason is that genuine uncertainty remains. The evidence explains much, but not everything. Scholars still debate numerous details: the precise sequence of construction, the full significance of particular features, the nature of certain ceremonies, the motivations behind specific design choices. These unresolved questions create opportunities for speculation, and speculation can be difficult to contain. The 20th and 21st centuries introduce entirely new categories of explanation. Popular books, television programs, documentaries, and later the internet spread theories across the globe. Some attract enormous audiences despite limited evidential support. The monument becomes famous not only as an archaeological site, but as a cultural symbol of mystery itself. This transformation changes public perception. Many visitors arrive expecting impossible secrets, hidden technologies, unknown civilizations, evidence contradicting established history. Archaeologists often find themselves in an unusual position. They're not attempting to diminish the monument's significance, quite the opposite. They are attempting to understand it accurately. The challenge is that accurate explanations are sometimes less dramatic than fictional ones. A stone moved by hundreds of coordinated workers may sound less exciting than a lost advanced technology. Yet the archaeological explanation possesses one crucial advantage: evidence supports it. This distinction forms the foundation of scientific investigation. Claims must be evaluated according to available evidence rather than emotional appeal. The monument survives because generations of researchers apply this principle repeatedly. Ideas are proposed, evidence is examined, interpretations are tested, weak explanations are discarded, stronger ones remain, knowledge advances gradually. One lesser-known aspect of archaeological work is how often researchers revise their own conclusions. Science is not a collection of fixed answers, it is a process. New discoveries frequently alter earlier interpretations. The monument provides numerous examples. Features once misunderstood become clearer. Assumptions are challenged. Old theories are replaced by better ones. This willingness to change conclusions represents a strength rather than a weakness. It allows understanding to improve. At the same time, certain mysteries remain remarkably durable. Some questions persist for decades. Others survive for centuries. The monument continues generating debate because the surviving evidence places limits on what can be known with certainty. No amount of investigation can recover information that vanished thousands of years ago. Researchers work with what remains. Sometimes what remains is enough. Sometimes it is not. This reality requires humility. The monument reminds us that the past is not fully accessible. Even the most advanced technologies cannot completely restore lost worlds. Archaeologists reconstruct probabilities rather than certainties. The evidence remains incomplete. That phrase appears repeatedly in serious discussions of the monument because it reflects reality. The structure occupies a space between knowledge and mystery. We know vastly more about it today than people knew a century ago. We know far less than its builders once knew. Somewhere between those extremes lies our current understanding. Perhaps that is why the monument remains so compelling. It offers genuine mystery rather than manufactured mystery. Not the mystery of impossible claims, but the mystery of incomplete knowledge. The difference is important. One depends upon imagination alone. The other depends upon evidence leading only part of the way. As archaeologists continue investigating, attention increasingly shifts toward a deeper question. If myths, legends, and speculative theories fail to provide satisfactory answers, what purpose actually motivated the monument's construction? What did its builders believe they were accomplishing? What role did the structure play within their society? The answers remain debated. Yet decades of research have revealed enough clues to outline several serious possibilities. And each possibility reveals a different way of understanding one of the most remarkable monuments ever created. Once myths are set aside and speculation is approached with caution, the monument presents a more difficult challenge. Why was it built? This question appears simple, yet it may be the most complicated problem in the entire story. Archaeologists can often reconstruct methods more easily than motives. Stones preserve evidence of transport and construction. Foundations reveal engineering choices. Artifacts provide clues about activities. Human intentions are harder to recover. The monument's builders never leave behind a clear statement of purpose. As a result, researchers must work indirectly. They examine location. They examine design. They examine associated artifacts. They examine patterns of use extending across centuries. Gradually, possible explanations emerge. None is universally accepted. Each accounts for part of the evidence. No single explanation fully accounts for everything. That reality has become one of the defining characteristics of the monument. The first major possibility is ceremonial significance. The archaeological record strongly suggests that important gatherings occur here. Large numbers of people travel to the site. Feasting appears to take place. Certain activities seem carefully organized. The monument occupies a central position within a broader landscape that appears structured around human movement and communal events. This evidence is difficult to ignore. The site clearly matters. People are investing extraordinary effort in maintaining and visiting it. Such behavior often indicates ceremonial importance. Yet the word ceremonial can be misleading. Modern audiences sometimes imagine ceremonies as separate from practical life. Ancient societies frequently experience no such distinction. Religious beliefs, social relationships, political authority, seasonal cycles, and daily survival often overlap. A ceremony can strengthen alliances. A gathering can facilitate trade. A ritual can reinforce community identity. The monument may support all of these functions simultaneously. Another possibility focuses on ancestry. Many ancient societies place enormous importance on relationships with the dead. Ancestors are not merely remembered, they remain active participants within cultural life. Certain monuments appear connected to burial practices, memorial traditions, or landscapes associated with generations of predecessors. Evidence from some archaeological sites supports such interpretations. The monument may serve partly as a bridge between the living and those who came before. Its permanence would be especially meaningful in that context. Human lives are brief. Stone endures. A monument can preserve memory across centuries. This possibility helps explain why communities might commit such vast resources to construction. Yet ancestry alone does not fully explain every feature. The astronomical alignments remain significant. The scale remains unusual. The surrounding landscape remains highly organized. Researchers therefore continue searching for broader interpretations. One increasingly influential perspective views the monument as a place of social integration. This idea shifts attention away from the finished structure and toward the process of building and using it. The monument may matter not only because of what it is, but because of what it does. Large communal projects encourage cooperation. They create shared experiences. They strengthen connections among groups that might otherwise remain separate. Construction itself becomes socially valuable. Participation matters. Gathering matters. The monument helps transform scattered communities into something larger. Archaeological evidence often supports this interpretation. Materials originate from multiple regions. People travel considerable distances. Different traditions appear to intersect at the site. The monument becomes a meeting place in the deepest sense of the term, not merely a location where people gather, but a mechanism through which broader identities emerge. This possibility is especially compelling because it explains several otherwise puzzling features. The enormous labor investment becomes understandable. The repeated gatherings become understandable. The persistence of construction across generations becomes understandable. The monument helps create the very society responsible for maintaining it. One lesser-known aspect of monumental architecture is its ability to shape behavior. Physical environments influence how people move, interact, and perceive one another. Large ceremonial spaces can generate feelings of participation in something larger than individual experience. Modern stadiums, cathedrals, memorials, and civic spaces demonstrate similar effects. Ancient monuments likely operate in comparable ways. Their architecture is not passive. It actively structures human experience. The monument may therefore function as a kind of social technology, a means of creating unity, memory, and shared meaning. Still, uncertainties remain. The evidence refuses to fit neatly within any single category. For example, astronomical features appear too deliberate to dismiss as secondary. Certain alignments require planning and intention. They seem connected to the monument's broader purpose. Why? Perhaps celestial events provide a framework for gatherings. Perhaps important ceremonies occur during specific times of year. Perhaps the movements of the sun and moon possess symbolic significance. The possibilities are numerous. The evidence remains incomplete. Scholars continue debating their relative importance. The monument itself offers only limited guidance. Its stones reveal patterns. They do not explain them. Another intriguing possibility involves power. Not necessarily power in the sense of kings or rulers, but power expressed through collective achievement. Monumental construction demonstrates capability. It announces that a community can organize resources, labor, and expertise on an extraordinary scale. The structure becomes a visible statement, a declaration of identity, a demonstration of commitment. Visitors approaching the monument would immediately recognize its significance, even if they understood little about its construction. The landscape itself communicates importance. This communicative function may be central to understanding the monument. Architecture often serves purposes beyond utility. It shapes perception. It creates emotional responses. It influences memory. The monument excels at all three. Thousands of years later, it continues accomplishing precisely those effects. People remember it. They discuss it. They travel long distances to experience it. The structure remains socially active despite the disappearance of the society that created it. That fact alone is extraordinary. As research progresses, a consensus begins emerging around one important idea. The monument likely serves multiple purposes simultaneously: ceremonial, social, astronomical, symbolic, perhaps ancestral as well. Ancient societies rarely divide activities into the neat categories preferred by modern analysis. A single place can be many things at once. The monument may represent exactly that kind of complexity. Not a structure built for one reason, a structure built because many reasons converge. Yet even as researchers gain confidence about its likely functions, another question begins to demand attention. If the monument is so important, if generations invest enormous effort into its maintenance and use what happens when the world around it changes, because eventually it does, the communities that build it evolve, the environment shifts, new traditions emerge, old beliefs transform, and the monument once at the center of an active human landscape must face the same force that confronts every civilization: time. For a long time, the monument appears permanent not only in stone but in purpose. Generations continue returning to it. Traditions survive. Ceremonies are repeated. The surrounding landscape remains connected to patterns established by ancestors long before. To the people living within that world, the monument may seem as enduring as the hills or the rivers, yet history rarely remains still. The same human societies capable of creating extraordinary structures are also capable of changing in ways their builders could never anticipate. The transformation usually begins gradually. Population patterns shift. Trade networks expand or contract. New technologies appear. Different ideas spread between communities. Environmental conditions fluctuate. At first, these changes seem unrelated to the monument. Then over time, their effects begin accumulating. Archaeologists often describe ancient monuments as living sites during their active periods. They are not frozen objects. They exist within dynamic social systems. When those systems change, the meaning of the monument changes as well. The structure remains physically familiar. Its role does not. One of the most important lessons archaeology has revealed is that monuments rarely possess a single unchanging purpose across their entire history. Places evolve. New generations inherit old structures and reinterpret them according to contemporary needs. The monument experiences precisely this process. What begins as one kind of gathering place may become another. What serves one ceremonial function may later serve a different one. The site accumulates layers of meaning across centuries. Some of these layers survive in the archaeological record. Others disappear almost completely. Researchers can often identify periods of modification. New features are added, Existing features are altered. Certain areas become more active while others fall into disuse. These patterns suggest adaptation rather than abandonment. The monument remains important. Its significance simply changes. This flexibility may help explain its remarkable longevity. A site capable of acquiring new meanings can survive social transformations that might destroy more rigid institutions. The monument becomes a cultural anchor, not because it never changes, but because it changes successfully. One lesser-known detail about many ancient monuments is how frequently they become connected to emerging traditions long after their original builders are gone. New populations encounter old structures and incorporate them into their own worldviews. This process creates continuity even amid disruption. The monument becomes a bridge between different eras. Each generation inherits something ancient and makes it relevant again. Yet adaptation has limits. Eventually, larger forces begin reshaping the world around the monument. Climate plays an important role. Environmental conditions are never completely stable. Over centuries, rainfall patterns shift. Vegetation changes. Rivers alter their courses. Agricultural opportunities expand or contract. Such transformations influence settlement patterns and social organization. What survives in the record suggests that the monument's surrounding landscape does not remain unchanged forever. Human communities must adapt. Some adaptations succeed, others create new challenges. At the same time, broader social developments are unfolding. Trade networks connect distant regions. Technological innovations spread. New forms of authority emerge. The world becomes increasingly complex. The monument, once perhaps standing at the center of a particular cultural system, now occupies a changing environment filled with competing influences. Its importance may persist, but its exclusivity diminishes. Other centers of activity appear. Other traditions attract attention. Other priorities demand resources. Archaeologists frequently observe this pattern in ancient societies. Monumental sites often flourish during specific historical conditions. When those conditions change, the structures themselves may remain while the social energy sustaining them gradually shifts elsewhere. The monument does not collapse. It becomes less central. This distinction matters. Popular narratives often focus on dramatic endings. Civilizations fall overnight. Cities vanish suddenly. Ancient worlds disappear in catastrophe. Reality is usually slower, more subtle, more complicated. The monument's changing role likely reflects a long process rather than a single event. Generations continue interacting with it even as its original context fades. The transition may be so gradual that participants barely notice. A ceremony is held less frequently. A gathering attracts fewer visitors. Maintenance becomes less intensive. New traditions emerge elsewhere. Centuries pass. The cumulative effect becomes profound. Archaeological evidence often reveals such transformations indirectly. Layers become thinner. Activity decreases. Certain areas stop being used. Construction slows or ceases. The monument enters a new phase of existence. It survives. Its society evolves beyond it. This moment is among the most poignant in the history of any ancient structure. The monument still stands exactly where it always has. Its stones remain massive. Its alignments remain intact. Its presence remains undeniable. Yet the human world that gave it meaning is changing. The structure becomes a survivor of its own success. Built to endure, it outlasts the conditions that created it. This phenomenon appears repeatedly throughout history. Great temples survive after religions transform. Palaces remain after dynasties disappear. Ceremonial centers persist long after political systems collapse. The monument joins this long tradition. Its continued existence becomes both a triumph and a mystery. Future generations encounter it without fully sharing the assumptions of its builders. Interpretation begins replacing participation. Observation begins replacing understanding. The gap between monument and society gradually widens. Still, the site refuses to vanish from cultural memory. Too much effort has been invested. Too much significance has accumulated. Too many generations have passed through its spaces. The monument remains present even when its original role no longer dominates daily life. This persistence helps explain why it survives at all. Many ancient structures disappear because nobody cares enough to preserve them. The monument benefits from centuries of continued attention. Not always the same kind of attention. Not always for the same reasons, but attention nonetheless. As the world continues changing, however, a deeper transition approaches. The builders are long gone. The traditions sustaining the site weaken. The surrounding cultural landscape transforms. Eventually, the monument begins moving from active use into something else entirely. A relic, a memory, a mystery. Its future will depend less on those who created it and more on those who inherit it. And the story of inheritance is rarely straightforward, because monuments do not simply survive history. They pass through it. They endure neglect, reinterpretation, admiration, and misunderstanding. They become rediscovered again and again. And the next chapter of the monument's life will be defined not by construction or ceremony, but by survival itself. The monument enters a long silence. Not the silence of abandonment in the dramatic sense imagined by popular stories. There is no single day when the last visitor leaves, and the winds immediately take possession of the site. Human history rarely unfolds with such clean endings. Instead, the monument drifts gradually into a different relationship with the world. The ceremonies become memories. The traditions become fragments. The meanings become uncertain, yet the stones remain. That simple fact changes everything. Across history, countless human achievements disappear completely. Entire settlements vanish beneath forests. Wooden structures decay into soil. Roads fade beneath vegetation. The overwhelming majority of human activity leaves little trace after enough centuries pass. The monument avoids this fate. Its builders choose stone, and stone possesses extraordinary patience. Rain falls. Generations pass. Languages evolve. Political systems rise and collapse. The monument waits. One of the most remarkable aspects of ancient monuments is their ability to survive people who no longer understand them. The structure may outlive the society that created it by thousands of years. During that time, new populations arrive carrying different beliefs, different traditions, and different assumptions about the world. The monument becomes a puzzle inherited by strangers. Each generation attempts to fit it into its own understanding of reality. This process creates layers of interpretation. Some communities may view the monument with reverence. Others may fear it. Some may incorporate it into local traditions. Others may simply regard it as an ancient curiosity. The archaeological record often provides only glimpses of these changing relationships. Evidence survives unevenly, yet one pattern appears repeatedly. The monument is rarely ignored completely. Its scale makes indifference difficult. A massive structure dominating the landscape demands attention. Even people who know nothing about its origins recognize that it matters. The question is why, and every generation answers differently. One lesser-known reality of monument survival is that many ancient structures endure because later societies find practical reasons to preserve them. Sometimes they become landmarks. Sometimes they serve ceremonial functions unrelated to their original purpose. Sometimes they acquire symbolic value within entirely new cultural systems. Preservation does not always require understanding. It only requires significance. The monument continues accumulating significance long after its builders are forgotten. Yet survival remains uncertain. Stone is durable, not invincible. Weather attacks constantly. Freeze and thaw cycles exploit tiny weaknesses. Water penetrates cracks. Wind carries abrasive particles. Vegetation pushes into vulnerable spaces. Given enough time, even mountains change shape. The monument faces these forces continuously. Its endurance becomes a story in itself. Archaeologists studying ancient sites often emphasize how much has already been lost. Modern visitors see what survives and naturally assume it represents the complete structure. Excavation frequently reveals otherwise: missing stones, collapsed features, erased pathways, destroyed secondary structures. The original monument may be larger, more complex, and more elaborate than what remains today. This realization introduces an important perspective. The structure that seems extraordinary now may be only a partial survivor of something even more impressive. Time has edited the monument. What survives is the result of thousands of years of selective preservation. And still it remains astonishing. The landscape changes alongside it. Forests expand and retreat. Fields appear and disappear. Settlements move. Roads emerge along new routes. Entire cultural worlds rise and vanish around the monument. Through all these transformations, the structure becomes a fixed point in an otherwise changing environment. Generations orient themselves around it. Travelers use it as a landmark. Stories continue attaching themselves to its stones. The monument becomes woven into local memory even when historical knowledge fades. Then comes another turning point: the Age of Rediscovery. This phase unfolds differently depending on the monument and the region, but the general pattern is familiar. Scholars, travelers, antiquarians, and eventually archaeologists begin approaching ancient sites with new questions. Instead of asking what legends say, they ask what evidence reveals. Instead of accepting inherited explanations, they investigate. Measurements are taken. Descriptions are recorded. Drawings are produced. Comparisons are made. The monument enters a new era of attention. At first, understanding remains limited. Early investigators often work with incomplete methods and assumptions later generations will revise. Yet their efforts matter. Documentation preserves information that might otherwise disappear. The monument begins transitioning from local mystery to global subject of study. This transformation has profound consequences. Researchers from distant regions arrive. New technologies become available. Excavations uncover hidden features. The monument's audience expands dramatically. People who may never visit the site learn about its existence. Its reputation grows. What was once a regional landmark becomes part of humanity's shared historical inheritance. The structure acquires a new identity, not merely a monument belonging to one place, but a monument belonging to world history. This shift brings both opportunities and challenges. Scientific investigation advances rapidly. Knowledge increases. At the same time, public fascination grows. Mystery attracts attention. Speculation attracts attention. The monument becomes famous partly because it resists complete explanation. Every discovery seems to generate additional questions. The more researchers learn, the more extraordinary the achievement appears. Its builders become increasingly real. Its accomplishment becomes increasingly impressive. Yet certain aspects remain frustratingly uncertain. That tension fuels continuing interest. By now, the monument has survived several lives. The life of construction, the life of active use, the life of gradual transformation, the life of inherited memory, and now the life of scientific investigation. Each phase leaves its mark. Each phase changes how the structure is understood. Yet despite centuries of research, despite technological advances unimaginable to its builders, despite countless studies and excavations, the monument continues withholding some of its deepest secrets. Indeed, as archaeologists push deeper into the evidence, they encounter a surprising reality. Not everything fits neatly together. Some clues point in different directions. Some findings complicate established theories. Some details remain stubbornly resistant to explanation. The monument, it seems, still has unfinished business with history. By the time a monument has been studied for generations, there is a natural expectation that most of its secrets should be known. The stones have been measured. The surrounding landscape has been mapped. Excavations have uncovered hidden features. Advanced technologies have scanned beneath the surface. Researchers have produced countless papers, reports, and interpretations. Surely after all this effort, the monument should be fully understood. And yet it is not. This does not mean the monument is inexplicable. Far from it. Modern archaeology has answered many important questions. The broad outline of its history is clearer than ever before. Its age can be estimated with increasing confidence. Construction phases can be reconstructed. Human activity surrounding the site can be identified. The monument is no longer an enigma in the way it once was, but understanding is not the same as completeness. A surprising number of details continue resisting easy explanation. One reason lies in the nature of archaeological evidence itself. The past rarely preserves a perfect record. Instead, it preserves fragments. Researchers must assemble these fragments into coherent narratives. Sometimes the pieces fit together beautifully. Sometimes they do not. The monument contains several such difficult pieces. One of the most persistent challenges involves intention. Archaeologists can often identify what was built. They can sometimes determine when it was built. Determining precisely why particular decisions were made is much harder. Consider a single massive stone placed in a specific position. Researchers may establish where it originated. They may estimate how it was transported. They may understand how it fits within the overall design. But why that exact stone? Why that precise location? Why that particular orientation? The answers are often elusive. The builders are absent. Their explanations are lost. Only the results remain. Another difficulty emerges from the monument's long history. The site is not frozen in time. Multiple generations interact with it. Features are modified. Structures are added. Landscapes are reshaped. As centuries pass, the monument accumulates layers of activity. Distinguishing between these layers is not always straightforward. A feature that appears connected to the original design may actually belong to a later phase. An object discovered near the monument may have arrived centuries after construction. Context becomes critical, and context is sometimes incomplete. One lesser-known aspect of archaeological work is how frequently interpretations depend upon probabilities rather than certainties. Researchers evaluate available evidence and identify the most likely explanations. New discoveries can alter those conclusions. This process is not a weakness. It is the normal operation of science. Yet it means some questions remain open for long periods. The monument has several such questions. For example, debates continue regarding the relative importance of different functions. Was the site primarily ceremonial, primarily social, primarily astronomical, primarily symbolic? Most scholars now favour combinations rather than single explanations. Even so, disagreements persist regarding emphasis. Different lines of evidence support different interpretations. No single explanation fully accounts for everything. This complexity is often frustrating to those seeking definitive answers. It is also one reason the monument remains intellectually fascinating. The evidence encourages careful thought rather than simple conclusions. Another source of debate involves construction itself. Broad agreement exists regarding the monument's feasibility. Archaeologists generally accept that ancient builders possessed the capability to create it using known techniques and organized labor. The unresolved questions concern details. Exactly how were specific stones raised? Exactly how were certain alignments established? Exactly how did construction methods evolve across generations? Researchers propose plausible answers, but complete certainty remains unattainable. The temporary evidence needed to resolve every question vanished long ago. Ropes decayed. Wood disappeared. Tools broke and were lost. Construction camps faded into the landscape. The monument survives. Its supporting systems largely do not. Then there are the anomalies. Not impossible anomalies. Not evidence of supernatural intervention or forgotten advanced civilizations. Simply details that fit awkwardly within existing frameworks, unexpected material sources, unusual construction choices, features whose purpose remains uncertain. patterns that appear meaningful but resist definitive interpretation. Archaeology is full of such puzzles. Most eventually find explanations. Some linger for decades. A few survive much longer. The monument possesses several lingering puzzles of its own. Researchers continue investigating them with patience. This patience is important because extraordinary claims often flourish wherever uncertainty exists. Whenever evidence leaves gaps, speculation rushes forward. The monument attracts more than its share of speculation. Lost civilizations, hidden knowledge, secret technologies, ancient global networks. Many such ideas enjoy popularity far beyond what available evidence justifies. Yet their popularity reveals something interesting. People sense that the monument is extraordinary. They recognize that it demands explanation. The mistake lies not in recognizing its significance, but in assuming significance requires impossible answers. The real story is already remarkable. A society operating without modern machinery creates a structure capable of surviving for millennia. Generations coordinate labor on a massive scale. Engineering, astronomy, social organization, and cultural meaning combine within a single landscape. The achievement remains extraordinary even when stripped of exaggeration. Perhaps especially then. The monument's greatest mystery may not be that researchers cannot explain it completely. The greatest mystery may be that human beings accomplish so much under conditions modern observers frequently underestimate. The more archaeology uncovers, the more capable the builders appear. What once seemed impossible increasingly appears achievable. Not easy, not simple, but achievable. This shift represents one of the most important developments in modern understanding of the ancient world. Ancient societies were not waiting for civilization. They were civilization. They possessed intelligence, creativity, ambition, and organizational capacity equal to the challenges before them. The monument stands as proof. And yet, even after acknowledging all of this, after accounting for engineering, labor, astronomy, ceremony, and social cooperation, a lingering feeling remains. A feeling experienced by travelers centuries ago. A feeling experienced by archaeologists today. A feeling that survives every explanation. Standing before the monument, one cannot entirely escape the impression that it should not be there. Not because it is impossible, because it is so astonishingly improbable. And that final distinction may be the key to understanding why the monument continues captivating the human imagination. The monument does not survive because it is mysterious. It survives because it is real. That may seem like an obvious statement, yet it captures something essential about why the structure continues commanding attention after so many centuries. The greatest monuments of the ancient world are often surrounded by legends, theories, and speculation. Those stories come and go. Interpretations change. New discoveries revise old assumptions. The stone remains. Generation after generation approaches the monument carrying different expectations. Some arrive searching for answers. Some arrive searching for wonder. Some arrive expecting to confirm what they already believe. Others arrive prepared to question everything. The monument accommodates all of them. Its existence is undeniable. Its meaning remains open enough to invite continued exploration. This combination is rare. Many historical mysteries disappear once sufficient evidence accumulates. The puzzle is solved. The uncertainty fades. Interest gradually declines. The monument follows a different path. Every major discovery increases understanding while simultaneously deepening appreciation for the achievement itself. The more researchers learn, the more impressive the builders become. That pattern repeats throughout the history of archaeological investigation. Early observers often underestimate ancient societies. Later evidence forces reconsideration. Capabilities once thought impossible become demonstrable. Sophisticated planning emerges from unexpected places. Complex social organization appears where earlier generations saw only simplicity. The monument stands at the center of this transformation in understanding. It challenges assumptions about what ancient people could accomplish. Not through mythology, not through impossible technologies, through evidence. The archaeological record reveals communities capable of extraordinary coordination. It reveals builders willing to invest immense effort in projects whose benefits cannot be measured purely in practical terms. It reveals societies able to think across generations rather than individual lifetimes. These qualities deserve attention. Modern civilization often associates achievement with technological sophistication. The monument reminds us that technology is only one component of human capability. Organization matters, patience matters, shared purpose matters, cultural vision matters. The builders possess all of these. Together, those qualities allow them to reshape an entire landscape. One of the most remarkable aspects of the monument is its relationship with time. Most human endeavors are temporary by design. Houses are built for decades. Infrastructure is planned around predictable lifespans. Even major public works eventually require replacement. The monument operates according to a different scale. Its builders create something intended to endure. Whether they imagine thousands of years is impossible to know. The evidence remains incomplete regarding their expectations, yet the structure clearly aims for permanence, and permanence to a remarkable degree is exactly what it achieves. The monument outlives its creators. It outlives their children. It outlives their descendants. It survives cultural transformations, environmental changes, political upheavals, and shifting systems of belief. Few human creations can claim the same. This endurance gives the structure a unique position within history. It becomes a witness. Not a witness in a literal sense, of course, but a physical presence carried forward through successive eras. Empires rise while the monument stands nearby. Trade routes appear and disappear. Languages evolve. Religions spread. Entire populations migrate. The monument remains. Its survival creates continuity across otherwise disconnected worlds. People separated by centuries encounter the same stones. They draw different conclusions. They experience different emotions. Yet they participate in a shared encounter with the past. This continuity helps explain why the monument feels strangely modern despite its age. Visitors recognize something familiar within it, not the specific beliefs of its builders. Those may remain partly hidden, not the exact purpose of every feature. Those continue generating debate. What feels familiar is the ambition, the determination, the desire to create something meaningful enough to outlast individual lives. These impulses remain recognizable across thousands of years. The monument therefore functions on two levels simultaneously. It reveals difference. It reveals connection. The builders belong to a world profoundly different from our own. Their assumptions, technologies, and cultural frameworks are often difficult to reconstruct fully. Yet they are also unmistakably human. They solve problems. They cooperate. They plan. They imagine futures beyond themselves. The monument embodies those universal qualities. Perhaps that is why purely technical explanations never feel entirely sufficient. Engineering matters. Construction methods matter. Transport techniques matter. Archaeologists devote enormous effort to understanding them, and rightly so. But the monument is more than an engineering achievement. It is a social achievement, a cultural achievement, a psychological achievement, a statement about what human communities can accomplish when enough people commit themselves to a shared vision. This broader perspective helps explain why the structure continues inspiring fascination even after many mysteries have been reduced or resolved. The appeal is not merely uncertainty. The appeal is possibility. The monument demonstrates possibilities many modern observers underestimate. Possibilities of cooperation. Possibilities of endurance. Possibilities of collective imagination. Every generation tends to assume its capabilities are unique. Ancient monuments challenge that assumption. They reveal deep reservoirs of creativity and determination stretching far into the human past. The builders did not possess modern machines. They possessed something else. Time. knowledge accumulated across generations, an intimate understanding of their landscape, and a willingness to pursue goals larger than themselves. The monument emerges from those resources. That fact remains astonishing. In the end, the phrase that gives this story its title may require careful interpretation. The monument should not exist, not because it violates the laws of physics, not because archaeology cannot explain it, not because supernatural forces are required. It should not exist because the odds seem so improbable, because countless conditions had to align, because generations had to cooperate, because knowledge had to survive, because effort had to be sustained, because the structure had to endure every challenge time could impose. And yet it exists, still standing, still commanding attention, still provoking questions, still reminding humanity that the ancient world was often far more capable, far more ambitious, and far more extraordinary than modern imagination is willing to grant. The monument remains where it has always been, stone against sky, a message from people whose names are forgotten, a reminder that history is not merely a record of what happened. It is also a record of what human beings proved possible. The wind moves across the landscape much as it has for thousands of years. It passes over fields, hills, rivers, and roads. It touches the monument's weathered surfaces and continues on its way. Generations have watched the same motion. Builders once stood here. Travellers stood here later. Archaeologists followed. Visitors continue arriving today. The monument receives them all with the same silence. Time changes almost everything around it. Forests advance and retreat. Communities grow and disappear. Languages emerge, evolve, and vanish. Entire systems of belief rise and fade into memory. Yet the stones remain. Perhaps that is the most powerful lesson such places offer. Human history often feels fast when viewed from within it. Lives are short. Events arrive quickly. Change appears constant. Ancient monuments reveal a different perspective. They remind us that some creations can stretch beyond individual experience. A builder lifting stone could never meet the people who would one day study the finished structure. The gap between them would be measured not in years but in millennia. And yet a connection exists. The stone provides it. Across that immense distance, effort survives. Intention survives. A fragment of human imagination survives. Not perfectly, not completely. Much has been lost. Names are gone. Voices are gone. Explanations are gone. The monument cannot tell us everything, but it tells us enough to know that people stood here long ago and looked at the landscape with purpose, enough to know that they cooperated on a scale that still commands respect, enough to know that they created something meant to matter, and somehow against overwhelming odds it still does. As daylight shifts and shadows lengthen, the monument settles once more into the rhythm it has known for centuries. Visitors leave. Researchers continue their work. New discoveries will emerge. Old theories will be refined. The conversation between evidence and mystery will continue. The stones will remain patient. They have always been patient. Long after individual questions are answered, the monument itself will endure as something larger than any single explanation, a meeting point between past and present, between certainty and uncertainty, between what has been lost and what survives. Standing quietly beneath the open sky, it remains what it has always been, one of humanity's most remarkable reminders that the ancient world is not dead. It is still speaking. And if we listen carefully enough, there is always more to hear.